What false and annoying stereotypes about Malaysia that exist, but they are not true?
There's often this notion of a lazy Malaysian. I don't think it's true. I understand where it comes from. There's a difference in mentality, whereas for a lot of Malaysians, I'm trying to speak very carefully here, not to generalize, but I would say in Malaysia they appreciate life and being able to enjoy life, to slow down a bit, somewhat better than they do in Singapore. Again, very generalized view, but Singaporeans seem a bit more materialistic and appreciating the material side of success, as though it's the only one, which it is not. So that's the difference. But from those differences stem a lot of stereotypes on both sides. Then the fact how developed or not developed Malaysia is. I'm sure that in many ways Singapore is more high-tech, somewhat more developed. It's a fact. But Singaporeans tend to exaggerate that gap. But it's funny, even Malaysians exaggerate that. I was once years ago on a bus from KL to Singapore. And at the time, I would say that the gap between KL and Singapore was actually less than now. It's broadening for sure. And there were a couple of Malaysian ladies behind me. And as we crossed the bridge and we entered Singapore, to me, it looked exactly the same as before the bridge. And they were like, oh my God, you can immediately see how nice it is. It's like, it's so much nicer, it's so much this, so much that. And I was like, come on. I mean, I'm sure some parts of Singapore can be nicer and, more interesting. But it's not like you cross the border and, oh, you are in this
Different world.
mystery kingdom.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
This is Daria. She's been living in Kuala Lumpur for 20 years and she even wrote a best-selling book about the country. Daria is happily married to a Malaysian husband and is employed by the United Nations organization. I am Max, entrepreneur and YouTuber from Singapore. Let's go!
What are the rules for the foreigners who want to assimilate into Malaysian culture or Malaysian society?
Number one, observe. Don't assume that you know just because you read one guidebook or just been to the country once or twice. So to me, observe, see what locals do, see how things are done, what's polite, what's not. Basically pay extra attention to small things like how do people greet each other, how close they come to each other, and don't come closer than it's customary in the country. So simple. And when you eat, like what people do, whether they take off their shoes or not when they enter the house. So basically observe and go with the flow. Second, don't try too hard. I see these foreigners who, they pick up one or two Malaysian things, like Malaysians say la. It's a Malaysian thing, everybody knows that. But there is a way to use this, there is a certain finesse to it, if I may. So when people just start putting la everywhere and they think it's so cool and local, it's funny at best, sometimes annoying. So don't try too hard, don't try to blend in more than locals. And number three, do blend in a little bit. Like, let's say if you go to, somebody invited you to Hari Raya open house, buy baju kebaya if you're a woman, or baju Melayu if you're a man. It will be appreciated, it looks nice, it looks appropriate. From what I know so far, there is no issues in Malaysia with cultural appropriation. When people get offended when somebody of another race wears their costume, it's not a thing here. So if you wear another race's costume, I think it's seen as respectful and something that means you appreciate their culture. So the same goes to other festivals. If you are invited to a wedding or a festival, just wear the outfit and kind of do what locals do to some extent. Eat local. I mean, another thing, but I think that's obvious. Yet strangely, I see people do that. Don't run down local culture. I mean, everybody has an opinion, fine, but there is a limit to what you say and how you say it. Don't say things that, locals don't understand how to cook, I don't know, chicken, because whatever country, we know best how to do it. So, I mean, of course, everybody thinks they know how to cook something the best possible way, but there is no need to be so rude about it, which I think I'm saying very obvious things, but I'm saying that because I've seen that, I've heard that.
Hey guys, Max is here. On this channel, I try to show you different personalities, different people from all over the world living not in their home countries. They're doing different stuff like businesses and careers. So I want to broaden your perspective of life and business and career. So if you want to support me and my work, please just subscribe to the channel, like this video. I'll be super happy. I'll be showing you more interesting people in the future. Thank you so much.
What would be your top list of places that you don't want to go to as a tourist to
I don't
Malaysia?
want to offend a lot of people now. Okay, so I'll give my short list of maybe not so attractive tourist places. Okay, so Johor. Nothing is wrong with Johor, disclaimer. But I just don't think it portrays the most exciting, the most attractive Malaysia that one might hope to find. Of course, now they have locations there such as Legoland, which is nice for the kids, but in general, it's not exactly a place where you can feel Malaysia and enjoy the beat of Malaysia. And it's a large state, so to get from one place to another, if let's say you end up shopping in the outlets coming from Singapore, and then you go to Legoland, you end up driving like huge distances just to go from point A to point B, and don't see much on the way. So there's that. Then I think Genting is overrated.
Oh,
Genting,
really? I want to go there actually. Because
it's worth a trip. I mean, I'm too curious to ever say don't go. To me, I think one needs to go, make a decision for themselves whether it's nice or not. But I definitely feel it's overrated. The casino is not that glamorous and nice. If somebody really is into gambling, I guess they don't care. But if you just want an experience, you want to dress nicely and to enjoy the glamorous casino concept that you see in the movies, you won't find it in Genting. It's pretty basic. When I first came to Malaysia, we used to go to Genting like every few weekends once because I like the cool weather. But to me, like growing up, going to the highlands meant going hiking, doing a picnic, barbecue outdoor. I was surprised when I first went there. There's nothing like that. There's a lot of development. Even before, there was this huge entertainment center, like a shopping/entertainment dining place, and now there's even more of that. So before, I remember we still kind of spent some time walking outdoor. There were some pathways, and now we went last year. There's none of that. There's a huge shopping mall with a lot of luxury brands. It's not bad, but I feel it's a waste. If I want to go to the highlands, I rather go to Cameron or to Fraser's Hill, where I get a bit of nature, a bit of hiking, some experiences like to pick strawberries, for example, in Cameron Highlands. In Genting, there's none of that. It's purely entertainment parks for the kids, like 2 theme parks covered and outdoor. I think there's more than 2 even, and shopping and dining, which isn't fantastic. It's just your regular outlets that you can find here in KL. What I like is the cable car, but would I go just for the cable car? Maybe not. So you drive up first, or you ride your bike to the outlets. There's now another outlets there. I don't know whether it's good or not, I haven't been. And another shopping mall around the outlets, and then you take the cable car up, where there's more shopping. So you be the judge whether that's fun or not. For me, it wasn't. Maybe don't go to the East Coast during the monsoon season. Malaysia generally has a stable weather throughout the year, but we do have a bit of quite a bit of bad weather on the east coast of the peninsula from about November to March. So you won't enjoy the seaside. You won't be able to swim, and it's going to be raining probably all the time. So most resorts are actually closed, like small island resorts that are on the east side, east coast. The big ones still remain open, like that are on the mainland. But you're probably going to be inside your room or just on the terrace in a cafe. So yeah, that's that. Just check the weather before going, whether it's monsoon season or not.
Hidden gems, you definitely have to go there, but to find them, you need to ask a local or like yourself about it.
Well, now in 21st century with internet, nothing much is hidden anymore. Maybe there is hidden, not even from me. What can I say? Well, speakeasy bars in KL are nice. So I'm sure there's a lot of them in Singapore. I've been to a few. So there's that. There are many of them in Penang. And you just have to do a bit of homework to get in. So you have to find a password or phone number to call. So it's kind of part of the entertainment. I don't know if everybody knows what a speakeasy is. It's a bar that's not very obvious. Like you won't find it unless you know what to look for. So it can be just a door in the car park in the basement that says no entry, for example. And you have to know where to press the door or which number to call to get in, or to even have a password. And then once you get in, there can be this glamorous looking bar with all kind of sophisticated drinks. So places like that, they have plenty of those in Chinatown. So yeah, that's fun to go. I love the Taman Negara, but not the one on Peninsula in Sarawak, for example. So the one on Peninsula is in Pahang. I think it's one of the biggest, but it's also too close to civilization. So you really won't see that many animals there. It's a national park, but it's the so-called light version when you can have hot water and air conditioning, and it's all very civilized. But if you want to really get into the nature, I love places like Bangkok, for example. I really enjoyed it because first it takes a lot of effort to get there. You fly to Kuching in Sarawak, then you take a bus, then you take a boat, and then you end up in this national park that has very basic accommodation. It can even be as basic as renting a plot of land where you can put your tent for the night.
Oh,
or like
nice.
It used to be like 10 ringgit, I don't know about now. And the most sophisticated you get is a very basic cabin with air conditioning or with a fan, with or without hot water. And then you have all these routes where you will definitely see wildlife. That's a lot more complicated than simply taking a walk in Taman Negara Pahang, for example. So explore these national parks that are like off the beaten track. Or for example, in Sabah, there is this Kinabatangan River. So around it, there are many tracks, many tourist routes that are really awesome. You'll also get to see a lot of wildlife and travel by boat and on foot and by car. So yeah, there's a lot to explore.
What's the craziest story that happened with you, like living 20 years in Malaysia?
I lost wallets full of cards and cash in restaurants, and I would come back like hours later and it would be there. So all kind of things. Yeah. And it's just it's nice. I'm sure there are bad stories too, but generally I have so many nice stories about how decent people are. Just recently, I picked up my son, and as I picked him up, I dropped my wallet, and I wouldn't have seen it. It just fell on the ground, and somebody actually ran after me and picked it up and gave it to me. Well, I have a story about Singapore too, but it's an absolutely ridiculous story. People will think I'm just a loony because in Singapore I managed to lose my suitcase.
Suitcase.
Yes, I was there on a work trip, and in the morning I checked out from the hotel. And I was going to work with my suitcase in a taxi. So I put it in the booth and I arrived and I went to work, forgetting that I have a suitcase. And I remembered about it like hours later. And it was pre-Grab. It was, I don't remember how I got the taxi. There was no apps at the time. And by the color of taxi, somebody at the conference center was actually able to trace which taxi company it was, and they called and they actually traced the guy, and yeah.
But you got it back.
Ooh, I have the same story about Bangkok. I have a lot of nice stories about people in the region. Seriously, all my stories are about how I messed up and people helped me out. No, in Bangkok, I go to a restaurant for a dinner with friends, for somewhere far away, like across town, like 1.5 hours in traffic. And I paid cash. to my taxi guy, and then we had dinner, and I went back to my hotel. So it was like hours later. And all of a sudden, my hotel reception calls me and says that some taxi guy was looking for me. So I come down only to realize what happened is in Bangkok, 1,000 baht and 100 baht kind of similar in color. It's red and pinkish, and it was dark in the cap. So instead of paying 200 baht, I paid 2,000 baht. And that guy didn't realize it immediately. So he drove off and then he saw it. And he didn't want to keep it. So he went back to the restaurant, by which time my friends and I had left. So he described me and he described my friends. And the restaurant gave my friend's number because my friend had made a reservation. So the restaurant had his number. So the taxi guy called him. He said where I'm staying. So that he made a lot of effort to actually track me down and give me back whatever, my 1,800. And I tried to tip him and he wouldn't take anything.
Wow.
It was
so
like,
nice of him.
yeah. So I have a lot of stories like that in the region. I think it's one of the reasons why I feel comfortable here. I never felt that I'm being taken advantage of because I'm a foreigner, because somebody's out to, to con you. No, it doesn't happen. I mean, yeah, it's a nice environment to live in.
The funny one that you said, like, okay, it's pretty safe in Malaysia. If you leave a wallet or something, like you get it back. But the stereotype...
I wouldn't say that it's always the case. I know the stereotype, yeah.
The stereotype, like, from Singaporeans,
I
like
know.
in Singapore, like, oh, it's like some friends, good friends, Singaporean friends, they tell me, oh, we don't go often to Malaysia because it's so dangerous. I mean, why? I mean, man, it's not like super duper dangerous. It's pretty safe.
I can say that I had a bag snatched from me a couple of times. So crime exists. Unfortunately, it happens. But I'm just saying, like, people in general, they're not out to get you. People are nice. I'm not talking about criminals. I don't know, maybe crime rate is higher here than it is in Singapore. I definitely feel safer in Singapore than I do here. But it was funny, when I was in Langkawi, I would always like sit with my handbag like next to me or on my lap. And somebody told me, oh, you must have come from KL just recently. I said, why? And so, but you're so like, hung up on your bag, like it's safe here. And I remember when I was renting a car in Langkawi, they told me, oh, once you are done, you just leave the car on the roadside and just put the keys in the glove compartment. So we don't need to lock the car. Yeah. So it's different. They say it's because it's an island, so how far can you run? But it's also rural mentality maybe, or just a small town mentality. So it's even nicer and safer in small towns than it is in KL.
You go to Bangkok pretty often, right?
Yeah,
To
I
work.
just came back on Saturday.
What's the similarities and differences between Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur?
KL is more cosmopolitan. It's more inclusive. It could be just because of the fact that English is spoken widely. In Thailand, it's better that you speak Thai. I mean, of course, it's fantastic to speak Malay if you live in Malaysia. Yeah. It always goes a long way to speak local language. It's respectful, but you can get by in Malaysia without it. In Thailand, not so much, unless you're just a tourist. So there's that. I also find Malaysia, I get people here. I understand nuances. I understand between the lines, some subtleties. It could be because I've lived here long enough and because my husband is Malaysian. But I find generally Malaysia as a country and Malaysians as people are more approachable and open. So they're easier to figure out at some point. I have a feeling that even if I lived in Bangkok for 20 years, unless I had masters in Thai history and language and culture, I doubt I would be able to get it as much as I get it here. There's that. It is also a lot more chaotic in a good way and in a bad way. It can be a lot more fun. But when I worked there, so I actually had an opportunity to move to Bangkok with the family about 5 years ago. And we considered that and we decided against it because we felt that KL is just so much more comfortable for a family with young kids. safer, better environment, fresher air. Also, Bangkok is more expensive. And if in Singapore, I sort of see why what I'm paying more for. In Bangkok, I'll be like, why am I paying more for this? No offense, I love Bangkok, it's a lot of fun. But if you compare like apple to apple, like apartments I can rent or buy, I enjoy KL a lot more.
I checked the prices, like price comparison. If you're buying a place in Bangkok and KL, and Bangkok is like twice the price is
Exactly
higher.
twice, yeah. I have, because I'm comparing notes with my friends who also have been buying apartments there. And in terms of size, it's about half of what you can buy for the same price in Malaysia.
You have 2 kids, right?
I do.
Okay, and they are like half Russian, half Malaysians,
Yes.
right? What's your strategy to bring them like when it's a mixed culture?
My experience of becoming a parent in Malaysia, I mean, like even throughout my pregnancy and having kids, is that the attitude here is more laid back, but in a good way. I'm an anxious parent, I'm an anxious person. It worked for me that I wasn't pressured about things here, like about stuff. At what age does your kid have to do this or that, and how many words do they speak? In terms of doctor's attitude, in terms of other parents' attitude, I find there is not much judgment. I wouldn't say no judgment. There's always judgment in parenting from other people. But in general, there's less of that. So I don't face that. I can't compare with Russia or any other country because I was never a parent there. But the stories I hear from my friends, from people close to me, I feel like here, you do your thing and, nobody gets into your business. Not even your in-laws, who actually normally have a right to do it, maybe, or do it anyway.
Do you, like you and your husband, you're thinking when your kids, when the high school, what university they would go? Or they stay in Malaysia, or they would go to US or to Britain?
I would like them to go elsewhere. And not because I don't want them to study in Malaysia. I just believe that going to university to another country is a rite of passage. It's like growing up. Even if you live in a country that has fantastic universities, maybe make sure your kid goes to another state or to another city so that they don't live at home with mom and dad. This is just my personal thing. I actually lived at home while I was at the university, but I think it's better when you kind of mature and you take responsibility for everything, for your studies, for how you live, for how you make social connections. I think it's great. And after that, they probably come back here or decide to stay somewhere else for a few years. That's not my concern or my decision anymore. But I'd like them to go elsewhere.
The previous video with you made a lot of positive feedback from Malaysian audience. Why do you think people like you so much?
I like Malaysia. Malaysia likes me back.
YouTube thinks this is the best video for you. If it's bad, it's not my fault. Blame YouTube, so go check it out.